Hi. If you have ever wondered why the prisoners in the concentration camps of the Second World War did not raise uprisings, then you have come to the right place. On October 14, 1943, an uprising led by Soviet prisoner of war Alexander Pechersky took place in the Nazi death camp Sobibor. This was the only successful mass uprising in concentration camps during the Second World War. Despite this, the feat of the Soviet prisoner of war for a long time was almost unknown to anyone. Sobibor operated from May 15, 1942 to October 15, 1943. It was located in the southeast of Poland. It was one of the so-called death camps created exclusively for the extermination of Jews and prisoners of war. According to archival documents, up to 6 trains a day arrived at Sobibor station, 2,000 people in each, adults, old people, children. People were told that they were going to work. The arriving people were greeted by an orchestra, and well-groomed flower beds were laid out at the entrance to the camp. In fact, almost all the people who came here were immediately destroyed. Sobibor was a well-functioning death machine. A special railway was brought to the crime scene. The corpses were transported on trolleys, and then they were thrown into pits. The decision to cremate the bodies of the prisoners was not taken immediately. The Commission for the Investigation of German Crimes in Poland writes in its 1947 report, "In all Hitler's extermination camps, cremation of corpses was systematically used to hide traces of a crime. At first, the corpses were buried in layers in large pits and covered with bleach. Mass cremation in Sobibor began at the end of 1942 and continued until the camp was liquidated. In total, there were about 500 prisoners in the camp, those whom the Nazis temporarily kept alive to serve the camp. Alexander Pechersky and a small group of his comrades, Soviet prisoners of war, ended up in Sobibor in September 1943. It took about 2 weeks for Pechersky to prepare for the uprising. There was no more time. Few people lived in the camp for more than a month. The way the mass destruction of people was staged in Sobibor shows complete thoughtfulness, constant care for all the little things. People went to the execution completely naked. Their belongings, clothes, shoes were sorted and sent to Germany. Women had their hair cut. Mattresses and saddles were made from human hair. There was a furniture workshop in the camp itself, so that the hair of the executed was used and sold right there in the camp. Finally, the device itself for the destruction of people, that is, the main workshop in this monstrous production of deaths, was complex and required attention, care, qualified technicians, stokers, watchmen, gas feeders, undertakers, grave diggers, recalled Dutch Jewess Zelma Weinberg. In just a year and a half of the camp's existence, the Nazis destroyed, according to various sources, from 150 to 250,000 people. It was Alexander Pechersky who managed to stop this conveyor of death. He managed to rally people around him and thought out a detailed plan for the uprising. Pechersky arrived at the camp just a few days after several dozen Dutch Jews were executed for preparing an escape. 80 Soviet prisoners of war had to do their work and build new barracks. Pechersky relied on the underground movement, which was organized by Polish prisoners. The main figure was Leon Feldhendler. The underground saw its main goal as spreading information about the situation on the fronts, about the defeats of the Germans, but any attempts to resist or escape were restrained by the principle of collective responsibility of prisoners. They didn't know how to handle weapons. The arrival of Pechersky with a group of prisoners of war had a strong effect. The survivor Kalman Vevrik wrote, "They had military experience. They knew all about guns and bullets. They will not disdain hand-to-hand combat." Like all prisoners, Kalman Vevrik was very impressed with Pechersky. He literally radiated imperious confidence and control. The leadership of the camp consisted of SS officers, and the guards were soldiers of the Galicia division. Under various pretexts, the prisoners managed to lure the SS men one by one, and thus deal with almost the entire leadership of the camp. The first to be killed was Untersturmführer Ernst Berg, who arrived at the tailor shop 20 minutes earlier than expected. At the moment when Berg took off his belt with a holster and a pistol and began to try on a uniform, A concentration camp prisoner defused him. The corpse of a German was thrown on the bed and covered with a blanket. From the memoirs of Alexander Pechersky, the prisoners failed to seize the weapons depot as originally planned, and they ran to the central gate under machine gun fire. Concentration camp prisoners used pre-prepared knives to destroy the Nazis, strangled them with their bare hands, ran to the barbed wire and chopped it down with whatever they had to. In several places it was possible to break through the fence. Prisoners ran across the field, exploding on mines. At the time of the uprising, there were 550 prisoners in Sobibor. About 100 of them refused to participate in the riot, hoping for the leniency of the Nazis. All of them were killed by the Germans the next day. Of the several hundred who fled, about 50 survived to the end of the war. Their stories have become invaluable evidence of the crimes of the Nazis, and their feat is immortal. After the Sobibor uprising became known, Himmler became enraged, ordering the camp to be razed to the ground and a potato field to be built in its place. On October 19th, Operation Reinhard, a program for the extermination of Jews, was officially completed. Its head, General Odilo Globoknik, reported that 12 million Reichsmarks were spent on its implementation, and the total profit amounted to 179 million Reichsmarks. The personnel were awarded military orders, and the leadership was transferred to occupied Italy to exterminate local Jews. Since the top of the SS understood that the war was actually lost, all the main participants were sent to the areas most dangerous because of the partisan movement. Many SS officers responsible for the Sobibor murders died. After the war, former leaders and guards tried to escape or hide, and eventually they were arrested. So, in 1965 to 1966, a major trial of 12 SS guards from Sobibor took place in The Hague. Only one, Sergeant Karl Frenzel, was sentenced to life imprisonment, 4 more to different terms from 3 to 8 years. The rest were acquitted, and only one of the 12 admitted his guilt. Commandant Captain Franz Stangl, who led Sobibor the longest, managed to escape to Brazil. Stangl was arrested in 1967. He died in prison of a heart attack. For a long time, only a narrow circle of historians who dealt with the crimes of fascists knew about the feat of Alexander Pechersky. Today, the name of Pechersky is known to many. A feature film was made about his feat. In addition, one of the streets of Moscow was named after Alexander Pechersky, and the hero himself was posthumously awarded the Order of Courage. Thanks a lot for watching, friends. I hope you were interested. Please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you soon.